Hey everybody, today's video is going to be rare, like a rare steak. That's terrible. Hey David, what is your rarest camera? So I get asked this question a lot, and so what I'm going to do is I'll build up to it. We're going to do a top 5 countdown of David's 5 rarest cameras. This first one, a lot of people think is the rarest Pentax camera body ever made. It's not. It's actually the 3rd rarest Pentax camera body. This is the Pentax S. There were about 5,000 of them made. That includes the ones that were marketed as Tower. I don't know the exact breakdown between Tower and Pentax S model designations. This is an actual Pentax S. It's just like the Pentax K, except that it doesn't quite go up to 1,000th of a second, and there are a couple of other structural differences. This is the 2nd or 3rd of the Pentax models that was ever released. So it's pretty uncommon, and this one works really very beautifully. I had it overhauled about a year ago because it wasn't working. So the S is really uncommon, so if you ever see one for less than about $350, snatch it up, and even if it doesn't work, get it fixed, because paying less than $350 for it and getting it fixed, you're still coming out ahead of the game. These are really expensive cameras. This next one also had about 5,000 of them made before Olympus got in a little bit of trouble for this designation for rules I still don't understand, but this is the Olympus M1. And I came across this one at a thrift store. Actually, I came across the S at a thrift store too. And it was just, okay, that's a good price for that. So I picked it up, and after having the prism replaced, the prism was getting, a lot of the old Olympus OM cameras have this problem where they used tape. When Olympus made the cameras, they put a tape or a foam or something like that on the top of the prism for no reason. It doesn't serve any benefit whatsoever. But it does degrade the silver coating on the prism over time, so you get this, what looks like a black stuff in the prism. And Pentax K1000s of the Chinese-made variety have the same issue. And what happens is that the adhesive either pulls away the silver or starts to degrade it so it turns black. And that's what causes this. So I got it replaced. I had it modified to take modern batteries, and wow, this is a fun camera to shoot. For a long time, the OM2N was my favorite Olympus rather. I'll tell you, the M1 is so much more fun to shoot than the OM2N. And the OM1, I mean, they're the same camera. I've got one of each, and they're really great. So yes, there will of course be videos about the Olympus M1 and OM1 coming out at some point in the future. My 3rd rarest camera is a Rollei old standard made in the 1st month of production, and I do have a video about this one, and I'll link it in the description so you can see that video if you want. I know it was made in the 1st month of production because when I bought it, it was non-functional, so I had to take it apart, fix it, and put it back together. And in the very early Rolleis, what they did was somebody would write in pencil the date of production on the underside of the reflex mirror behind the viewing lens. And that one had on it, I forget the year, it was 1930 something, but it was made February 29th of the 1st year that went in production, and it went into production in February of that year. So it was not only made in the 1st month, it was made on the last day of the 1st month, which was the 29th of February. So that's a pretty cool little piece of camera history. And it's also the only camera I know the exact production date of in my whole collection. My 2nd rarest camera is this guy right here. It is a working Pentax Electro Matic. Now a lot of people don't realize it. This camera is rarer than the Pentax S. The Pentax S had about 5,000 bodies made. This one only had about 2,300, and they were only made in 1 year in Japan. And they're in working condition now, incredibly rare because they were all hand soldered, the electronics on them. And over time, they have not held up really, really well. So I've seen a bunch of these, but I've never seen another one that worked. And in fact, this one didn't work when I got it. I had to fix the electronics on it a little bit to get it working. And unfortunately, with these old Electro Matics, you cannot take a board out of an ES or an ES2 and put it in here and then have a working Electro Matic. And no one is fixing these anymore because no one really knows how the boards were put together or what everything does. There's no existing schematics for them. So if you have a non-working one and you tinker around with it a bit and then you have a working one, great. If you have a working one, that's very rare. Fun fact, the rarest Pentax camera, which I don't have, is the Nocta, and I've seen one in my life come up for auction. They're really, really, really rare. So most of them, they were all only for military and police use. They were a special infrared camera. They were only for military and police use. They had a very special lens on the front of them. And these big arms with disc-like things coming off of them that shot infrared bulbs, which the one I saw up for auction included the infrared bulbs, but without those, there's no using it as an infrared camera during the night anyway. And it was designed to take infrared photos during surveillance operations. So most of them, as I understand it, were taken back by Pentax after their service ended for repurposing as scrap. I don't know if that's true, that's what I've been told. So there's very few of them out there. Eric Hendrickson at Pentax S has in fact repaired them before. One or two of them, he said. They are super, super rare. So if you ever get a chance to get one and you have the money for it, they go for about, the one I saw up for auction was selling for about $11,000, so they're not cheap. It's something I will never own. But my rarest camera is gonna look really pedestrian to you at first. You're going to say, this is not rare, there are 21 million of these. But if you take a closer look at this seemingly pedestrian Pentax K1000, you'll notice that the designation on the body is a factory misprint and it says K100. I emailed everyone I knew when I got this. I posted on Pentax forums, on Facebook. I emailed every camera repair person I know. I emailed Rico, they ignored my email. No one has ever seen one of these before. No one I talked to has ever seen a Pentax factory misprint anywhere on a camera. There are some Leicas and Canons out there that have factory misprints and things like where it was produced and stuff like that. I talked to appraisers about this camera and none of them were even willing to put a price on it because they had no idea what any factory misprint in the model number would even be worth compared to the standard. Some of them said, well, you might get double. And some of them said, I don't know that there's a way to accurately price that. So anywhere from double the value of a K1000 up to the sky is the limit was interesting to find out that this is so rare that even the appraisers, the two appraisers I talked to who specialize in misprint cameras, were unwilling to give me any insight into what this could potentially sell for at auction. So that's pretty cool. So the K100, the misprinted K1000 is definitely my rarest camera, and everyone I talked to concurred that it is a distinct possibility that it is a 1 in 21 million misprint, that there is no other K1000 out there that missed the quality control check to make sure that the model designation was correct. Because there were a lot of quality control checks that went into these. You'd have somebody engraving, I believe back then that these were all hand engraved, using an engraving pantograph system, which means first off, whoever did the engraving had to either set up the engraving pantograph incorrectly, which if they did, you'd think there was a whole batch of these. And if there's a whole batch of these, then somebody in QC would have done a spot check on the batch and found that they were all misengraved and sent them back to be re-engraved. A distinct possibility that the engraving pantograph was set up correctly and he or she just missed this last zero in it. Who knows, maybe the lunch whistle was sounded and is like, oh, I'll get this last zero afterwards, came back, forgot all about it. And then it just slipped through the QC inspection where people checked to see if the designations were correct and things like that, and somehow got out the door. Even though everything about it is mechanically a standard K1000, it's a pretty special camera because there are no other examples that I've been able to find from anyone I've talked to where the model number was misengraved at the factory. So those are them. Those are my rarest cameras. They all work. They all get used, and it's fun to shoot rare cameras once in a while.